Thank you, Tina.
Oh, look who's there. Renee is here too. And
Yes, it's
Stephanie.
so good to be
Yeah.
together. And
Hi.
thank you for everyone who came tonight. I am Tina Brockman, and not mute myself. Wow, as I'm talking. Just be doing a brief intro. I know many of you have joined us for our talks before, but these talks are put on by the Sanctuary of Earth in partnership with Richmond Ions. So this series is intended to bridge the theoretical, empirical, and philosophical with people's lived experiences on topics of spirituality and consciousness. Our aim is to provide listeners a range of options to promote individualization of our unique interface with the divine. So it's again a perfect partnership between Richmond Ions and Sanctuary of Earth. Richmond Ions focuses primarily on the science of spirituality, and this series complements that by giving a specific focus on the practices of spirituality. Our Zoom meetings do occur every first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So we do hope you'll continue to join us. Our speakers rotate each time, and we're lucky to hear from Susanna again, as we have before. But there are a lot of other folks who bring very unique topics and different perspectives on maybe topics we're familiar with. Like Richmond Ions, Sanctuary of Earth does rely on donations to operate, so we'd very much appreciate a donation of any amount, but a suggested donation is $10 for your attendance here tonight. That does help us to continue to offer these programs for free, and Sanctuary of Earth is growing a lot, so please do also check out the hyperlink to register for upcoming classes that we have as well. Just a little bit more about Sanctuary of Earth. Our mission is to actualize human spiritual potential on Earth and for Earth by providing a bridge between the cognitive and empirical to our lived, embodied, grounded, and practical experiences. Again, we are in process of creating many beautiful interactive online skill developments, and I know many of you here have had a chance to do various classes to hone your clairsenses and your intuition. So please do continue to take those classes as you feel called, and invite your friends as well. And as always, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Susanna Calvert. She had a 26-year career in higher education, and I always think it's a fun point to mention that I was happily a student of hers during that time. And what a privilege to continue to be a student of hers now that she has transitioned into her roles as a nonprofit entrepreneur, as founder of both the Foundation for Family and Community Healing and the co-founder and board chair of Sanctuary of Earth. So during her long career, she has published a textbook, which we don't talk about much, but related to our spiritual practices. She continues to be a very published woman with hundreds of journal articles, books, and book chapters, as well as posting for blogs such as Psychology Today. As we all know, Susanna is also very a passionate member of the community in Richmond and offers a lot of classes both on Zoom and in person for groups and in individual settings. She is here to help and support gifts for folks who are interested in healing, clearing, and activating their mission through intuitive guidance, such as channeling and tarot, and also through yin movement energy. And as we all know, that is only just a brief glimpse into our dear Susanna, but I will at this point turn it over to her to talk more about New Earth.
Thank you, Tina. It's wonderful to have such a shining example of my past life in my more recent more recent phase in my life. And thank you everybody for joining tonight. I feel so grateful to have so many dear ones in attendance tonight. As you know, I'm really very passionate about this subject, and I believe we all are, which is why we're all here together. And it's really an honor to be able to share the visions, the downloads, the information, the senses that I've been given by Spirit as to what is coming and what at least what I feel like I'm being invited to do, and invite others to participate as well. So I'll be talking about ushering in this new earth energy, a call to action. I forgot to mention, there will be some experiential exercises here. So maybe have a pen and paper ready, or if you want to type on your computer or something. I forgot to mention that earlier, sorry. All right, so let's see. So probably a number of you are already feeling this energy too. So what I would really welcome is at some point you sharing your perspective about what new earth energy feels like to you. But before we get started, I always love to start my sessions and my classes with some energy work. I'm just going to quit calling it Reiki because it just is a pretty far cry from Reiki. It's called Yin. I'm calling it Yin, and I will be teaching it in 2024 later this year. And so I think everybody's on the mailing list, so you'll know when that is. So I think most of you have received Reiki from me before. So if you wish to receive the energy, just get into your Reiki receiving position, and we'll ask the energy to do what is in the best benefit for all concerned. It'll be short, will be about three minutes or so. Okay. So you can open your eyes whenever you're ready. Come back to the Zoom room. I thought that was interesting. I really felt it. Usually when I do these group sessions, it just feels like the group energy, but that really felt like New Earth energy coming in and really grounding herself with us today, and in part because of us. So I really appreciate all of you for helping hold space for what feels like it really wants to come in. So this is what we're going to talk about today. As you all know, I really like to have this talk be as experiential as possible. And that was, I feel like, a really good intro to New Earth and what's coming. So we'll start with that, talking about my sense of our evolution to New Earth. And like I said, maybe I'll actually pause it and we can see what everybody's sense is. And more importantly, how do we get there? Because we're all, to me, the invitation is that all of humanity is being invited into this new Earth energy. Not that everyone will necessarily say yes or accept, but I feel like those of us who are showing up to these kinds of sessions are much more likely than not to want to do that. And I'll talk about my sense of the path and what Sanctuary of Earth and the Foundation for Family and Community Healing, I'll just call it Healing EDU, are doing to help everyone who wants to go there, go there. And then also the work that will be needed and the resulting gift. So not everybody knows me as well as Tina does. So I'll just give a really brief background about myself. I do feel this is relevant because my background, I feel like, will help us issue the invitation into New Earth energy to as broad of an audience as possible. But I spent most of my adult life as an atheist, including when I was being a professor at BCU teaching pharmaceutical sciences with Tina, living in the West End, and I was pretty much living out of my head 24/7, and I was darn proud of it. I would have actually told you that at the time, which I'm a little embarrassed to admit now. But I'm also not that embarrassed, because I feel like that is just, we're all on that path, and I just have a different perspective on this phase of my journey. Had a spiritual awakening about 5.5, almost 6 years ago. Is that right? Yep, nearly 6 years ago, where when I was coming back from my sister's funeral, we learned of my husband's stage 4 cancer. And right in that moment, I had a spiritual awakening, and and I quickly learned to channel by some serendipity, which is a story for another day. And pretty soon I was devoting myself to following my guidance. And about the time my husband passed away, 7 months later, I was offered and accepted my mission. And I thought, well, what the heck else am I going to do with my life? So I decided to give up my dream job where I was doing faculty development at the University of Georgia, and quit and move back to Richmond and put my life savings into starting the Foundation for Family and Community Healing. So I became a nonprofit entrepreneur. And also at the time, Spirit said, oh, you're also going to be like a spiritual thought leader and teaching people tarot and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm going to be teaching professors tarot? Oh my God. And Spirit was like laughing and saying yes. And I'll be calling myself a psychic. And I was just horrified, actually, kind of traumatized by the message a little bit, but here I am, calling myself a psychic, among other things. And having with my buddies starting this organization, Sanctuary of Earth, which is really to help invite all people into their divine purpose. And so we're, as Tina said, we're offering classes, as I think most of you know. I also offer healing, yin energy work. intuitive guidance, and so forth. So it was not a very direct path to this work, and I would never have dreamt it 6 years ago. But it's wonderful, and I love it, and I love the community, and the beautiful souls such as all of you who are here tonight. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So just my mission is important in the sense that this is all part of New Earth. So I'm going to share it with you here. As I was trying to process the crisis that was unfolding in my life, one of the first things I realized, besides discovering my spirit guides, was that I have had a neglected relationship with Mother Earth. And while I was there caring for Chris pretty much on my own, I was just sitting out in my Florida room, just communing with Earth and feeling heard and held and healed. And I realized that this was going to be a central part of my mission, is to help humanity and myself, starting with me. It's always starting with me, for my work. I got to begin with myself. Restore a loving and reciprocal relationship with Earth as part of a more holistic climate change strategy, or climate justice, however you want to call it. And so this is a central part of our work with the foundation, which also offers psychological, social, and emotional skill development and resilience. Because the other thing that part of the reason we've fallen out of right relationship with Earth is we've fallen out of right relationship with ourselves and each other. And I contributed to the problem for 20 some years, in that we're all just so in our heads, and our metrics are all about money and power and degrees, in my case, and credentials, and thinking and being analytical. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but when we do it to the exclusion of everything else, then we can create a lot of damage to ourselves, and our communities, and our planet. So I'm telling you this because what Spirit told me was that these skills are going to be essential for people to be able to live in New Earth. And I'll talk a little bit about what that is, but part of New Earth is that we are in touch with ourselves as human beings that are social and emotional, not just cognitive, physical beings, and that we are in touch with those things, and that we use all of ourselves to be in care for ourselves, each other, and Earth, and also to live according to our true nature. And that one of the things that will help bring New Earth on and help us heal is what I perceive to be a spiritual renaissance, that we are on the brink of a spiritual renaissance, and it's going to be an antidote to, the flight from organized religion that we are seeing. And so the Sanctuary of Earth, therefore, is here to help support people's spiritual renaissance and their unique relationship with the divine. So we are not a church in the sense that we're going to have a holy book and all these tenets and thou shalls and all of that. It's about helping people develop their individual relationship with Spirit, so that there is nobody and no thing that stands between us and our Creator. And all of this together is the scaffold for our new society, or New Earth. So that's pretty much how I see it. And I kind of described what I feel New Earth is, but my mission is totally 100% about, starting with myself, moving into New Earth energy, and then creating pathways for others to follow suit, should they feel so inclined. I don't think I need to belabor what a crazy time period we're in. You've probably heard the term VUCA, volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous. And a newer term that I've heard recently is polycrisis. So all of this is coming I think if nothing else, to show us what the product of thinking too much can do, but also to show us the limits of our considerable intelligence as humans, that our world is way too complex for us to understand, much less figure out and solve the multiple crises that we are in. And so to me, the only sensible recourse is to access all forms of intelligence available to us, and including our cognitive intelligence, and bring that to bear on where we are and where we're heading. So I love these quotes from Albert Einstein. You cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So we can't solve the problem of all this thinking with more thinking. And of course, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So we need a big paradigm shift. And the polycrisis in VUCA is going to force us into recognizing this, this paradigm that we're in, this new paradigm. So the invitation to New Earth, really, in my view, is that we give up on needing certainty, needing to know, and that instead we embrace the mystery and cast a wider intelligence net. So many of you, I made my living off of being the expert and knowing, and then I moved, as a teacher and a scientist, and then I went into coaching where I was just being more curious. And now I'm really proud of the fact that I know nothing. And I try to live that way. Like, I try to live as a person who knows nothing, who is totally open to the mystery of the universe, and that there is insight there. And when I'm a blank slate, then what I feel like my inner truth or a more divine truth can flow through me. I also feel like as we are giving up on certainty, that we can then, and if we're open and curious, we can embody our soul's purpose. So one of my why stories, origin stories, has to do with having spent the first 36 years of my life pursuing my checklist for happiness. And when I got everything I ever dreamed of, the last item being tenure, I realized what a horrible mistake I had made, because I was following somebody else's dream, following somebody else's life plan. And because this was not mine, and I was miserable instead of blissful. So I had since learned that that one needed to follow their own authentic purpose, and not the one prescribed to them by their family or their community, or even what one might call a pretty considerable intelligence. It doesn't mean you're very wise. So I feel like in New Earth, we are each living our soul's purpose, and that we are moving more and more into unity consciousness, and we are healing the wound of separation. Okay, so what is New Earth? I'll just pause to say that, this is a term that my guides gave me when I was living in Athens. And when I moved to Richmond, I heard a lot of people using this term or terms like it to describe the sense of where we are heading as a collective. It's, to me, and from what I understand, a high vibrational reality. I describe it as beloved community for everyone, including Earth. I consider Earth the original indigenous being. And this community is peaceful and just, and has justice for all beings, human and non-human, and where we can all fulfill our soul's potential. So not the potential I had in my head, but the one that my soul incarnated on Earth for. And from my downloads from when I received my mission about this, the terms that were used were things like justice, fairness, love, compassion, and service. And so this is becoming, I believe, our new reality. once we get through the other side of the poly crisis. So some of you may be familiar with the Gene Keys. It's this beautiful download to a man named Richard Rudd. So the Gene Keys framework or assessment is sort of the next evolution of, what's it called? Human design. So it's really beautiful. It talks about our evolution from shadow into gift and then into the highest expression of these human archetypes called the Siddhi, S-I-D-D-H-I. And Rudd, as he describes this evolution of each of the 64 gene keys he describes in this book, says that we're actually evolving to a new species. He calls Homo sacredus, the sixth race, where we have unity consciousness, unconditional love, and healing of victim mentality. So this is really a wonderful self-assessment, but also a way to see in more detail what we're moving into. So, it's the beautiful reality that we are all dreaming of, and he describes it in a fair amount of detail, though us actually fully achieving this new race status is, of course, quite a ways away. He describes this as new global structures and monetary system based on philanthropy and virtue. So what I was told is that care for ourselves, each other, and Earth, and living as our true selves would be the new coin of the realm. That those are going to be our values. That's what we're going to measure ourselves against for success, as opposed to how much money we have. Rudd describes us as a race of saints, is what we're turning into, and into a world that most of us would consider pure fantasy. And it's entering the age of we, so more of a collective mindset. I studied adult development theory in various parts of my career, and I have a certification in the assessment and evaluation and coaching. But I also feel like this also describes humanity's evolution. So this is really based on individual development, according to Keegan, who describes adult development as less of milestones like get married, leave home, get a job, retire, that kind of thing, which was the traditional way of describing adult development, to more of your ability to understand and manage complexity. So let's see, if you just look at an individual development, we'll just start here at the, these young kids, 6 years old or so, what they see and understand are their impulses and perceptions, but what they don't quite yet see are their what's underneath it, needs, interests, and desires. And as they develop, those things become evident to them. But what is not necessarily visible or subject to them or object to them are things like interpersonal relationships and mutuality. So as we evolve, these things come into our awareness and consciousness. And eventually, people may evolve to the point of being able to self-author, develop their own identity, develop their own ideology. But sometimes that becomes all there is. And eventually they would start discussing or being able to compare different ideologies across culture or systems. So this is individual adult development theory, but I feel like humanity as a whole, like if we were to take the average or the mean or median human, we're probably somewhere here. And what Rudd is describing is somebody who is more here, like we have our own ideology and sense of identity, but we also are open to everybody else's as being equally interesting and valuable, and understanding that there's so much more that we will never understand, and being able to hold all of that at once. So I feel like this is another way to think about humanity's evolution and where we are coming out of, I think, a very early stage on average. which is why we're so overwhelmed by our modern world, because there's so much more that is invisible to us than we understand. Of course, that will be true no matter where we are in our development, because we're human. But at least at the self-transforming mind, we're at least aware that, of how little we know. And we don't necessarily take everything too literally, too seriously, because it's more like, who knows? We just try to make the best decisions we can. Okay, so, I feel like everyone here has probably been moving in this direction, whether you recognize it or not. But my experience, the more I've cleared the wound of separation and these other things, the more I just and know nothing and am in trust, following my guidance, seeking to understand the mystery or just be in the mystery. The more peaceful and safe I feel, the more I feel life is harmonious and deeply meaningful, the more I can tap into a sense of oneness and joy. The old Susanna would not have even known what anybody was talking about if they said they felt joyful or blissful. It seemed like an abstraction. And where we're all going, according to my guidance, is that we're going to be embodying this new earth energy, which I'll call phase 2, and that we'll have 1,000 years of peace and heaven on earth. We're going to create heaven on earth for ourselves and 1,000 years of peace. Just love that. So I'm going to just pause and see if anybody wants to unmute and share their sense of new earth energy, if they sense it differently, or if you want to put something in the chat, would love to hear. Okay.
Well, Susanna, this is Renee coming to you from Portland, Oregon. I love the new term polycrisis, and listening to your vision and what's possible that we're living. I think we're designed to be here. There's no accident that we're even in this room together with you right now. So it really gives us a sense of hope for lifting up, because it's getting messy out there, and it's probably going to be we're in the chrysalis. If we were describing a butterfly, or a caterpillar becoming it's pretty messy. We're actually eating each other up, I love Richard Rudd's vision and how you're integrating all these tools and resources in a way that helps people begin to practice, bring their own personal practice together individually and then collectively. I think this is the absolute pathway for the design of the new communities that are emerging. We're living it now. It's not in the future, it's now.
That's right.
Thank you so much for your vision.
Thanks, Renee. Totally agree with you. And it's really gratifying to me when others feel the same thing. And here we are, relishing in the energy together and helping each other. Okay. So I already talked more than I intended. So let's just move on to how to get there. And we won't have to cover everything that I put down on here. So how do we get there, in other words? So I feel like it's somewhat inevitable, because Earth, as I understand it, is going through an evolution. And we, that is humanity, as an integral part of Earth's ecosystems, we can't extract ourselves from Earth or her ecosystems. So we are part of that vibrational shift as well, whether we want to go along or not. And so I feel like part of the polycrisis has to do with this resonance shifting, and it's changing. It's starting to change everything. It's surfacing our shadow issues. So anything that is not in alignment with that higher vibration is being brought to the surface. And so if we don't heal those shadow issues or those low vibrational parts of us, those that are fear-based, separation-based, the pain and the wounds, whether it's individual or collective, they are going to hold us back into old earth energy, and it's going to get more and more uncomfortable and even start to then disintegrate. So this shift is just naturally inviting us to rise up with her, and instead of fighting it. So when we rise up with earth and we heal our shadow selves and our wounds, that we can manifest our soul's intentions and create heaven on earth. So we could do so one at a time, and we're going to do so collectively. And polycrisis notwithstanding, heaven on earth is available to each of us right now. And I think that is the best invitation humanity could possibly have right now.
I'd like to weigh in on that.
Sure.
I think one of the most challenging things for us is to get out of the concept of time as we have known it. The limits of what is really an abstraction of the reality in our cosmos, whereas what we think of as time only relates to our solar system. But we have the entire cosmos as our family. And there's no such thing as the time that we use to calibrate where we are now versus where we were or where we are going to be. And I think heaven on earth is a concept that is adopted from a very ancient origin. Tom, when you presented a few weeks ago, a month ago or so, the evolution of God as we have known God and its impact on our evolution, that a very ancient civilization that dates way before the so-called Big Bang or the creation of the world as we know it was another dimension of reality that had interfaced with us at a certain point and brought with it the whole concept of heaven on earth. And heaven was known as the place where they came from. So we I think often are dealing with an abstraction that has a very uncertain foundation in reality. And I think that whenever we think of something happening to us, we're distorting the whole notion of time all again, because there is no such thing in the larger reality as past, present, and future. And as Einstein had said, they are simultaneous. So getting outside of the fixation on time allows us to be here now and then simultaneously.
Well, and
so
also here and
heaven.
there.
You know, heaven is here right now in our potential.
That's right.
And
That's right. All we have to do is understand that and decide that's how it is.
yeah, so not dealing with an abstraction, but dealing with a true direct experience of the ecstasy that is potential in these moments of conscious revelation.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence. And in all my years in higher ed and professional development, I would say this is easier said than done. So what we're here to do in Sanctuary of Earth is to help people actually move into that. So it was very well said, Lawrence. And the question is, how do you do that? So that's what the spiritual practice series is about as well. Yeah, just knowing it is not quite enough.
Right.
So why now? Why are we talking about this now? Why is this all happening now? Well, Spirit told me that our reality, and again, just like there's no time, it's also unclear what reality is really. You know, there's no distance, there's no separation, really. We are source, okay? But what we view as reality, it could also be viewed of as a role-playing game, like a video game. And I was told that the current RPG is being retired and it is already a zombie. Like our modern world is already a zombie. It's already dead. And so we're experiencing the pains of it being shed. It's like the skin of a snake. It's coming off and we're parting with the skin, but that's the only thing we've ever known. But we're going to just evolve with that either way. And what I was told is Earth is evolving to become the brightest star in the galaxy and is becoming relevant in a way that we can't even understand. And that's a subject for another seminar that Tom can talk about, I think. So the challenge of what's keeping us from heaven on earth is again, like this part of ourself that is the low vibrational part of ourselves, our shadow issues, our wounds, our fears that are often subconscious or unconscious and that we don't want to deal with. And they block us from our clarity about who we are and that heaven on earth is available to us now. And what is our purpose and how do we move into that? Because just like so many other things, since we've been spending, I don't know how many hundreds of years just mostly focusing on our brain and our physical reality, what we think, what we know, what we can measure. We don't know how to even describe or to deal with these emotional and subconscious issues. But they are demanding to be dealt with. They're getting harder and harder to ignore it both individually and collectively. And they're presenting as crisis in our individual and collective realities. So.
Susanna, Tom has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Tom. Thank you, Lindley.
Well, and this is, I don't know what's pertinent to what you're talking about right now, but in terms of what Lawrence was talking about and what you were talking about earlier in reference to this shift going on, I just want to throw in that there are all kinds of traditions that speak of various epochs and so forth. I mean, you know, we started with back in the 1960s, early 70s with the song of the Age of Aquarius, talking about the transition from the Age of Pisces into Aquarius, which various people disagree on the exact timing of it, but it's around now or so. And that's one thing, which also signals the transition into a new astrological year, of the what is generally referred to as the precessional cycle. But in any event, that's one thing. There's also, by some measures, transition going on from Kali Yuga to Kriya Yuga, which would be from the worst to the most unenlightened to the most enlightened cycle, and the Michael teachings indicate that we're just transitioned from the theme of the young soul, which is to have dominion over the physical plane or the earth, since we're here, or else into the mature soul theme, which is all about relationships, such as green movement, relativity, Ken Wilber's of philosophy and all that. And then finally, in the context of the Ra, they also indicate that we have transitioned just about 2008, Earth transition, crossed the threshold from third density into fourth density, and that there is a window of time in which humans will have to around 750 years, in which humans will have to to assimilate to the energy of fourth density, and those who cannot will simply no longer incarnate on Earth. Those who can will be here. So that transition represents the transition from the energy of the stomach shock or the ego, the earlier stage of ego, into the energy of the heart chakra for the learning about unconditional love and compassion in a much deeper way than we've ever known before. All of this is completely consistent with what your guidance has been, and I just wanted to.
Well, that is just so validating. Thank you, Tom. And it explains a lot because because again, like the pathway of how do we go from ego, which is very fearful, and it's, it just clings to our wounds and our fears and amplifies them and keeps us separate, right? The wound of separation, and move into that heart space. And so those are the social, emotional, psychological skills and the resilience, and then also getting into our spiritual selves. So this is the work of the Foundation and Sanctuary of Earth. So yeah, thank you.
Sure.
There's so many perspectives of it, and I'm really grateful to hear about the cosmological, because I'm just really here on Earth going, okay, people, this is how we do it. It's not enough to know, and I've just to simply know, and that's what I've learned after 26 years in higher ed. Just understanding the concept, but actually doing it are two different things. And so, our goal is really to help humanity, all of humanity, move. So how do we do that? That's like it's another big question. Even if we could educate everybody about that, how do we get them to move? So this is the model for what I understand is on offer right now. So here we are, the current reality. I have it drawn as a golden basket here, and here's our avatar, or us as a human, and that there is a player across the veil. So there, our higher self is over here, or whatever you want to call it, this consciousness, and we're playing this game with this avatar in this game, which I'll just temporarily call phase 1. And then we're moving into phase 2, where this is a higher vibrational being. It's New Earth, Homo sacredus instead of Homo sapien. And to get from old Earth to New Earth, we have to go through what Spirit told me is an umbilicus in order to get into this higher vibration. And like Lawrence was saying, as we were saying with Lawrence's comment, it's not actually a different location physically. There's really no distance either. We're all one. There's all one. But it's really just changing your vibration while you're in place. And I can tell when my vibration shifts. I can go along feeling peaceful and blissful. I was going to say pissful. And then if something upsets me, then all of a sudden I'm in a lower density. I'm in a more dense state, a lower vibration. And so I just phase shifted in place. And so the challenge for us as individuals, but also as our offer to humanity, is to help people move into this higher vibration and stay there and maintain it, because this is going to be more and more the reality of Earth. So it's a phase shift. We're not actually going anywhere. So that's why I call it phase 1 and phase 2. I'm going to skip that part. So what we need to do to actualize New Earth, the invitation, is to raise our vibration and increasingly embody unity consciousness through inner work. And so to me, this is all about spiritual bypassing. So I spent a lot of my career doing professional development in sort of the secular, world, where, we want a blog and we want a quick course to solve all our problems, but we kind of go up against all the shadow work and doing the deep inner work. We don't want to do it. But I'm also finding in the spiritual community that there's a tendency to want to do that too. Oh, I'm going to do this medicine. I'm going to have this sound bath. I'm going to do yoga. But we still are stuck in some of our challenging behaviors because we haven't actually done the work, and we just keep repeating the same behaviors and emotional patterns for the most part, if we don't do that inner work. So either way, we come up against this dark center that nobody wants to address. So it's called spiritual bypassing on our side of the fence, but out there in the, the rest of the world, it's, I don't know, not going deep enough. So I'm going to just touch.
Susanna?
Yes.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. So it's, to me, it's not just the spiritual bypassing, but it's being aware of the difference. There's, okay, being aware that there is a difference out there.
Right.
And
that's right.
And yeah, I mean, I know you know that, but to me, that is the instrumental thing that needs to be brought forward and that needs to be brought out, is that there is a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not knowing how, I don't know how to do that exactly, but it's just because there's so many people that I know, and I'm, guessing others know too, similar, that aren't even, to say they have blinders on is not even enough.
Yeah, well, we all have blinders, and as I said, I feel like the circumstances of the polycrisis are going to force us to go, what am I missing? And I think that's when we're going to rub up against this inner work bubble that neither side really wants to penetrate. And because we will have tried everything else, and then it's like, okay, what are we missing? And so that's when we get to go, hey, how about this? And we'll start offering pathways for it. So that's what the work is. So yeah,
No, absolutely, that's the work.
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah. So as Tom said, it's going to be more heart-centered, and it's about care for ourselves, each other, and Earth. It's all about our soul's purpose. So our authentic, being our authentic selves, our higher self, embodying our higher self. Part of it is balancing yin and yang, and I'm going to talk about that because, when Maggie talked about blind spot, that's so much of our blind spot is in the yin. I mean, by definition, it's in our unconscious. And so we are so out of balance with that. And the yin is also referred to as sort of the feminine energy. And it's not necessarily female per se, but it's feminine. And so many of the things that we associate with feminine energy is unconscious, and we push it away. And then we also mentioned shadow work.
I'd like to add something.
Susanna, one thing about that too is that because of the influence of our long-time yang dominant culture,
right?
Women are just as much there to balance as that as men
right.
are oftentimes.
That's right.
Not
That's
just
right.
a male-female thing.
That's right. It is not a male-female thing. It's just more of the feminine type energies and perspectives. Yeah. Yeah. And then there are men that are more balanced than women. It's not gender at all. So I already talked about this.
I'd like to add something here.
Oh, sure, Lawrence, go ahead.
I think it also helps us to look at the difference between sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic. And the sympathetic is the fight or flight response to challenges. And the parasympathetic is focused on ease, rest, harmony, and intuition, things like that. And just an example of the difference between them can be found in something as simple as looking for one's keys or wallet or phone when you're almost late leaving the house for an important appointment. And if you don't get that thing, you can't be on time, and you can't even probably get there. And what I noticed is that if I'm looking for something that I can't find, I get anxious about it. And what happens is it impacts my perception. So the perception is restricted, and therefore I can't see what is in plain sight sometimes. And what I did in this case is just stop and took a deep breath and just put myself at ease and knew that I would find it just beyond where I was looking. And sure enough, I was able to perceive it and therefore see it. It was just maybe a foot away from where I was looking. And I was thinking, you know, what a great lesson that is. Because again, you know, just realizing this thing, we don't see what we can't perceive first. So the perception is what makes our lens more easily focused on what's possible. And it may just be slightly hidden by
Yeah.
fear or anxiety.
Yeah. That well said, Lawrence, and thanks for bringing up that example. It's also like the fight or flight, and you know, we can't, like when we're in stress, we can't access that wiser part of ourselves, the more rational, thoughtful, intuitive parts of our brain or our cognition, because we're in the amygdala. Yeah, but thanks for connecting that. I love that. So I feel like another really important framework, and I think this is maybe where we issue the invitation to humanity, because some of this stuff like spiritual bypassing, like they're not even going to know what we're talking about. But what I think a really resonant invitation is one that is timeless, and it has to do with this hero's journey, or Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And so most of you probably know this, but I'll just quickly describe it. Joseph Campbell was a comparative mythologist who studied the tales, legends, fables, and religions across time and culture. And he said, what do all of these stories from humanity are they trying to tell us? And he came up with a framework called what he called the hero's journey. I call the hero's journey. That according to him is the formula or the instructions for how humans can want to feel most fully alive. It's the framework for feeling most fully alive. And although it's also a very meaningful journey. And so we know the hero's journey through our most beloved tales and epic stories like Star Wars or Wizard of Oz. And in each case, the hero departs from their comfort zone, ostensibly to go fight some bad guy or bad gal. But in the process, when they get stuck with their back up against the wall, realize that the only way to success is to do the inward journey, doing the inner work. And this is exactly where we are with the polycrisis. We're getting our backs up to the wall individually and collectively, and we're going to have a WTF moment.
I've lost
and
you.
We are going to, I believe most of us are going to do that inner work. We're going to venture into that dark area that Campbell calls the innermost cave. And he compares it to the belly of the whale in the Jonah and the whale story. So the polycrisis is going to force us into this inner work, to do the shadow work, to find that balance and healing on a level far deeper than our schools or workplaces ever tend to teach us. So this has always been humanity's calling, and we have just forgotten because we're off busy making money and streaming video. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we need to have some balance now. I think one of the things we discover when we journey inward into the innermost cave is our truth, our inner truth, or even the truth. I'm not going to pretend I know what the truth is. I can only speak from my own experience about what my own truth is. But if there's one truth that I would be willing to commit to on a video and on YouTube is this idea of oneness, unity, consciousness, that we are all one, but operationalizing that is another matter. Because we still have to survive in this during this incarnation. And so oneness, we would then surmise that God is equal to goddess, equals to Allah, equals source, divine, creator, creation, earth, spirit, you, me, we, one, whole universe. But if we were to do that, then we start to run into paradox, because I am the same as you. And you are the same as the collective. So, while that makes sense intellectually on some level, it also makes absolutely no sense on another. And then how do you operationalize that? And we run into all of these contrasts. Well, light and dark are the same if it's all one, and so is good and bad. So is in and out and up and down and self and other and so on and so forth. So how do we grapple with that? So I feel like these are the questions and the practices that Sanctuary of Earth is going to be diving into, and the questions that we need to ask of ourselves in terms of what this means to us and how do we make that our reality. So I have some ideas about it. And I talked about this at the last Sanctuary of Earth Spiritual Practice Series talk I gave last year. So I'm not going to get into it much, but I do want to just, in the few minutes I have left, just remind everybody about yin and yang, because I feel like this is really extremely important to us moving into new earth energy and finding balance and healing. So as I mentioned, yin is often referred to as this dark side of this swirl, and refers to the unconscious, or like the Jungian shadow. And the yang is the light side, and it has to do with our cognition and our known world and everything that we think we understand. They are in a swirl, in a paisley design, because they are in dynamic equilibrium with each other. And one cannot exist without the other. You cannot have just light and you cannot have just dark. So we in the spiritual community are always like, be the light, but it's like, well, what about the dark? We got to be the dark too. How do we leave the dark off? And I feel like, we talked about this Tom mentioned the yang on overdrive here in our modern world. In a way, I feel like we contribute to that by be the light. Well, let's be the dark too. Let's be them both. Let's be the balance. And it's not even an either or, because the contrasting shade is in the opposite side. So it's also about integration. So for the yang, in this case, like there's a downside, or there's an unknown to our material world, or the things we think we know. There's the unknown, there's the downside. It's not just all good. And in the yin, there's parts of it we do understand, like I don't really understand the nature of rage, but I know when I feel it. But there is also the upside, what we would call good, the good part of, feeling love or feeling happy, that kind of thing. So these are in dynamic equilibrium, and they are inevitable. And the more we try to ignore one and forsake the other, the more out of balance we get. And I feel like this is a hugely part of the reason we are in the poly crisis. Part of it is our judgment. This is good, this is bad. And when we just accept that both are, we don't have to repress and reject and judge ourselves and each other to be bad and evil. So again, easier said than done, but having a mindful practice of self-awareness and noticing these beliefs in what we do in our language, I feel is going to be a very important part of healing this and moving into that new earth energy. So balance and embrace it all and integrate them. And just know what you can control. The only thing I can control is what I think about a situation, which will affect how I feel, and then what I do. That's the only thing I really have any control over. And that's really powerful beyond measure. And we often give away that power and say, well, this is how it is, but maybe that's not the complete picture. And when we are in that openness, we can get out of the hell that we might be living in and move into the heaven. Okay, so I think I was going to have you do all these experiential things, but I blabbed, which I really am unhappy about that. But there's nothing neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. I think I would like to maybe do this guided meditation, and then I'll wrap it up, and then we can have some more discussion or questions. Does that sound like a good plan? Okay, so those of you who've taken the clairvoyance class, this is a little bit of a repeat, but I think it's a good one. We are going to do a meditation to open up the ego, so that we can be a little more clear. So if you'd like to join me in the meditation, then get yourself comfortable, feet flat on the floor. We'll keep this fairly short because I want to make sure we have time to wrap up and then any more chit chat. So let's take a deep breath. And we're going to just feel our whole body. So just separate or just move your consciousness out a foot or two from your body, and have it observe and feel every limb, every part of your torso, every part of your head, and all your parts, all your internal organs. So you're going to just feel yourself as a single organism, a beautiful heterogeneous mix of materials. And you're going to regard all of your consciousness as one. All of your aura as one beautiful, sweet sensation. And just take a couple of breaths as you feel into all of you. How luscious it feels to be embodied on our beautiful planet, in this beautiful community. Now just imagine you're from your place of consciousness that you're in a car. And we're going to look in the the driver's seat. And if the being there is your ego, then we're going to address our ego. Say, thank you, ego, for helping us understand who we are and all of our identities, and the sense of separation from others so that we can maintain the integrity of our bodies and our lives, our homes, our belongings, to keep us safe and sound. Thank you so much for your service. And ego, to the degree that this is stressful and scary, we want to offer our hearts and souls to step up, be of service, take the burden off of you, so you're not doing it alone. And we ask you to move from the driver's seat into the back seat, because we need you to keep us safe. But it is time for heart to move into the driver's seat. So we invite our heart consciousness to move into the driver's seat and to direct our attention, direction, and actions while we keep our higher selves in the passenger seat and ego standing by if needed. We empower our heart consciousness to have this wide perspective and decision making with input from others. Thank you, heart and higher self, for navigating to our healing and embodying our soul's purpose. For that, this is why we have embodied on earth at this point in time. Pause for a minute and feel the energies of those consciousnesses in their new locations. Let's thank them all silently to ourselves. And set the intention for them to stay in place until further notice. You can always change them back if you wish. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up here and invite you all to join us if you have not already, or to join us in other things that if you have not participated in this piece of it. But Healing EDU has a growing number of online courses on skill development in these areas. Again, the purpose, according to my guidance, is to help humanity maintain ourselves in new earth energy, to move into and maintain it, and that the spiritual renaissance will be supported by spiritual skill development through Sanctuary of Earth. We have our Claire series going on right now. I think almost everybody here is on the mailing list. If you're not on the mailing list, please put your email in the chat. And we're having our first retreat on the weekend of the 22nd. And we'll be offering Reiki and Yin energy healing, tarot, and also apprentice programs. So would love it if you can join us, if you haven't already, for any pieces of those. Foundation is offering facilitator training. We're having a new round starting on Monday, and it's free for those who are in the Richmond area. So let me know if you're interested in that. So thank you so much for coming and your participation. And again, if you feel so moved to make a donation to support our seminar series, we'd very much appreciate it. And I'd like to really hear from anybody else who would like to share their perspective or had a thought or question or concern. Feel free to just
Susanna?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I went for it. Yeah, just wanted to chime in, and really grateful that you shared all this with us tonight. And I know we've had some conversations about this, and yeah, I know you were appreciating a little bit of, I don't know, affirmation or validation from Tom's share as well. And I just thought, for me, I'm not receiving this guidance directly. I'm just now developing my relationship with my guides, and they're not giving me all the deets of the bigger picture, but I get a lot of that from you. And so and then out here in Costa, it's a very, a lot of, my Spanish teacher calls them hippie gringos, and a lot of spiritual people with a lot of beliefs. And so it can be a little challenging for me to discern what feels most true in alignment and such new, new realities to expand into with this. So for what it's worth, my sister-in-law, she's a very, very strong channel, and has been for a couple of years now. And when kind of that portal opened with her, and much of what you shared here, lines up with that. And I'm not only sharing that for you, but for myself too. Like, it was really helpful, because I've often thought, like, well, if everybody's guides are telling them different things, like, everybody for real thinks it's for real, right? Because it's what they're receiving. And what is, and Tom, some of what you said, especially like around, I'd say the big things were, Tom, the window that there's going to be for folks that have chosen to step into the new paradigm, the new dimension, the higher frequencies, and those that do not will not come along. So of course I have, curiosity and sadness, some sadness when I imagine what that means. And then also I was just trying to think of the other points, Susanna, that were really, the separation wound just being, and we do a lot of the shadow work out here, and it's like the layers we get through, the earth layers, we get the past life layers, energy layers, and it's like this separation, that separation wound is at the core of most human experience when we can get into it. Yeah, I'm trying to think, there was one more main point, but I'm not sure that it matters all too much to share, but just that it's really helped me feel in this experience tonight, and hearing from Tom and others, and yourself, and then thinking with my sister-in-law too, just of like easing into it, and Lawrence sharing like a little bit more. I think it was Lawrence, like maybe it was Maggie, or I don't know, but having hope around this, because I've often just felt like sad for the children and the next generation, and like the polycrisis crap, and this is just a much more hopeful space, and feels very like in alignment with my big messaging that took me down this path in 2017, of just like the vision I was shown of the exchange of no monetary exchange, the exchange of heart, and the exchange of service, and the exchange of goodwill, and the, I think you call it the human ecosystem, or that's how we live with one another. And so yeah, I don't know what my shares are, and my last little piece would just be, I'm just sharing what came up here, but just the shadow and the light, and I know some language, and I do think, if we're just talking even about expanding and relating to others that are, there's the spiritual bypassers, and then there's folks that I lovingly say are sleepwalking. We're just on autopilot. We're going by all of our limiting unconscious beliefs. We're not even aware. And I think the languaging is really important, especially for those folks, because I often hear the words like, working with people, my demons, and they're only talking about the shadow, right? And so bringing that just came through pretty strong, of like some importance around the languaging, which you noted, and we move through the shadow to get to the light, and there's only one way through it. That's through it. We can't go up it, around it, under it, and the light is there. We're bringing the light into the shadow, and all are important for us, like all are necessary. So yeah, just thanks for listening. Thanks for holding this, and everybody else, and a few lovely faces I miss so much. Tammy being one of them. Hello. And yeah, I'll let someone else have some space here.
Yeah, and we're going to be having classes on all of it. So I have a class on the hero's journey I want to put on the calendar this year, as also shadow work. And the retreat is going to be, we'll be covering a lot of this. So it's a women's retreat though. So you ladies, I hope you'll consider joining us. Thanks, Megan. Anybody else?
I just want to say that good evening, everyone. This is all very in line with my own inner guidance, and I'm just very happy to see it coming forth. Susanna, I love that you keep asking the question, what's missing, but it seems to me we're answering that. Like, we continue to show up for our callings, and And the shadow work is, I think, critical. And I really believe deeply that it's time for these circles to be lovingly created, for that work to be facilitated and gone through, even maybe more in a group setting. I know a lot of us have gone through it, and it's been brutal, like brutal, some of it for me. I'll speak for me and just say brutal. But, you know, richly satisfying, right? So, you know, there's the gift, there's the hope for the next phase, right? I can look somebody in the eye and say, yeah, I know it seems really terrifying, but I promise, like Megan just said, we have to go through it. And I think a lot of the beauty right now and what's being birthed, and I really do see it as like phase 2, we have us there to catch it. Like, you're in a delivery and there's someone there to catch it. And there's been many times in my life, all through my journey and different levels of development, where it seemed like I was going through it alone. But I was always so grateful whenever I was able to share my experience and ease the process, help shine a little light on, oh, this is what's coming up ahead. Prepare, and just soften into it instead of resisting. And I just couldn't be any more excited and happy to see the next level of work being done as groups. Now, I don't know if it's going on in other places, but this is where I am, and I'm seeing it here. And in the past few years, it's really seemed to me, it's what's needed. And it's really funny. In my massive awakening in 19, one of the strongest things that was communicated to me is that total vulnerability is what is called for. And I didn't even know what that meant when I was getting it, but it was redundantly expressed to me. And I was just like, oh, okay. And that is what it is. Trusting our community to hold us as we go through our process, and know that there's no judgment. Everybody's going through it, man. Everybody's going through it. This is like where we really hold hands and we lean in together. And to me, this is where the unity consciousness will truly become integrate, we'll integrate it, because we will literally, truly experience each other being there and with each other through all of it. And there's no difference. We're all going through it with, you know what I mean? Nobody's special here. We all have the shadow. We all have the light. And I couldn't agree with you more on the moving away from the identifying as the light worker. I very proudly will say I work in the light and the dark. They are both me, and they are you too. How can we hold hands and really bring in unity consciousness? So I love you. I love you. I love you. Your work is absolutely amazing. And I'm just so grateful to be along for this, that this is happening. And it is happening. It really is. So thank you, everybody that's here tonight.
Thank you, Tammy, for all the healing you are doing for all of us on behalf of everyone. We're at the end of the time. Let's go ahead, Tom.
Yes, in reference to what Tammy just said, Tammy, all the guidance I've gotten through the years from Group 7 and other sources as well is that there are roughly 500 million people in the world today that are on a similar path.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more these kinds of groups can come together and start networking, the greater the impact will be on a planet-wide basis. So
yeah,
this is exactly the right direction to be going in.
Absolutely. I feel it in every fiber in my being.
Yeah. So I feel like there's lots of folks doing this work around the world, but what we hope to do is not only do the work, but equip people to bring that work to others as well. So, we're also really focused on scaling and making this efficient, because 500 million people, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Actually, that number represents what we've been told is the largest percentage of the world population who meditates now. So that is really, a critical mass that is changing the balance or the vibration, shall we say, of the planet as a conscious environment. And we're facing the dysfunction of what has been with us for aeons. And of course, there's going to be enormous shifts because we're shedding the old form that no longer serves, and it hasn't served us for a long time either. So we're in good company.
Yes.
Right.
So grateful to be on this journey with all of you, dear souls. Final announcement next month is Grief as an Apprenticeship with Kelly Cummings. So I hope you will come back next month. And if you haven't already met Kelly, then this will be your opportunity to meet this beautiful soul. If anybody needs to go, please do. But I just, for anybody who would like to stay and make any more comments, I just like to leave the Zoom room open in case anybody else had any other comments or.
Almost midnight.
Okay, my dears. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see
Thank
you
you.
next month.
Thank you again,
And,
Susanna.
Thanks a lot, Susanna.
Love
Been
you
wonderful.
all.
Everybody.
The
It's
Thank
schedule.
good to
you.
hear all
Thank
of
you.
you.
Good
Yeah.
night, everybody.
Bye.
Megan,
Bye-bye.
I love you. I miss you. Mwah, 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 mwah. Love you,
Hey,
baby
I'm
girl.
glad to see you're awake.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Hey, good night, night.